Hey, everybody, it's another segment of Last Call. Yep, that's right. That's Dean Blandino, and I'm Mike Pereira. I'd like to taunt Dean Blandino once in a while since taunting is everybody's talking about taunting. We've got one in the Kansas City-Dallas game. And how about this? Frank Caliando. He actually tweets. Frank says, anyone tired of these taunting calls? And then I love the girl who actually tweets, hey, if we want a taunt-free sport, we turn to ice skating. Dean, how about the taunting penalty in the Kansas City-Dallas game, which had a kind of a crazy enforcement?
Yeah, it did. I wonder what voice Frank Caliendo used for that tweet. Like, who was he in that tweet? And then to that girl, turn to ice skating. Do you know what they do in ice skating? They hit each other with batons. They attack each other before big Olympic trials. So I don't think I want to go to ice skating. I'll stick with taunting in the NFL. It's much safer. But look, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he scores a touchdown. This one, to me, this is not controversial. This is a foul. It's always been a foul. I don't care if it's a point of emphasis or not. He pointed at the defender as he ran into the end zone. That's been a foul as long as I can remember. Now you've got a decision. Right now is the offended team, the Cowboys, they can take the penalty on the try or the kickoff. They elected to take it on the try. So that means instead of snapping from the 15 for a 33-yard kick, now you're snapping from the 30 for a 48-yard kick. That could be, we've seen it, right? Extra points now. Used to be a 99% play from the 2-yard line. Now it's much less. Well, not much less, but 93, 94. That could be a game changer. But this one to me, look, I know taunting seems to have been, maybe overboard this year, but this one's a good call.
Yeah, and the two automatics that we always talked about in taunting, right? We're pointing at your opponent on the way to the end zone and then waving goodbye. If you wave goodbye as you're going into the end zone, that's also one that's an automatic. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more of them enforced on the try, because if you think about it, if you enforce it on the kickoff, it's from the 35 to the 20 and you would be kicking off there. But that 1 point could be a huge difference. So I thought it was an interesting enforcement. But again, the extra point from the 48-yard line was right down the middle and good. But that's that.
That's that. All right, let's move on. Let's move to college football. And this is a feel-good. This is a feel-good story, Mike. This is Dorian Thompson-Robinson reconnecting with a young fan after years and years, maybe not years and years, but a couple of years, and signing an autograph. And then he ends up getting a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. What happened here, Mike?
He kind of got excited, and then this 12-year-old fan who was 12 when she got he threw her glove back at the Coliseum, his glove back years ago. And I get it. I mean, you can't use a prop, and so that's a prop. But if I'm Thompson, man, I'm excited to give that autograph. And I agree with you. It is a feel-good story, and sometimes you just have to take the 15-yard penalty and say, hey, it was worth it. And to the Bruins, hey, it was worth it, right?
That's what I say. That's just the price of doing business. I'm okay with it. You can't. And the college rule, you want to talk about no fun league, right? Forget about the NFL. Right. The college rule is much more restrictive. Like, you can't, right? You talk about props. You can't go into the crowd and interact, right? So Lambeau Leap type things, going in, signing an autograph. You can't spike the ball. You can't spin it after a touchdown. So it is much more restrictive. And obviously, you're talking about student athletes, not professional athletes, and they do sportsmanship certainly is a primary concern. But again, just the price of doing business. I would have done it. You would have done it. You would have charged, though. You would have charged the kid for your autograph. But again, hey, it was a feel-good story.
I would have gone into the stand and ripped the hat off of the kid. I would have said, we can't have this in college football. To their credit, I do think, though, Dean, that college football is loosening up a little bit. I mean, they were a lot tighter, it seems to me, a decade ago, and are letting a little bit more enjoyment. I mean, you couldn't even pose for any length of time, right? I mean, you couldn't do that at all. And so now it's a little bit looser, but it is so restricted. But let's look at the big picture item here in the NFL. All right, let's look at Pro Football Talk, who Mike Florio wrote an article that said, one way to try to fix officiating would be making all officials full-time. And this is a popular rant that comes from the public, from the fans, and from many, many of the media. Give me your thoughts about full-time officials.
Yeah, and this isn't a new concept. I remember having conversations with John Madden and other, Coach Madden is still a big part of consulting with the league and having this conversation with head coaches. And look, I get it from their perspective. They're full-time. They spend 90, 100 hours plus working on their craft. They're working in the off season. It's all that they do. And the perception is that what officials do is they work their 9 to 5 during the week, and then they show up on Sunday, they work the game, and then they leave, and they don't really think about it or put any time into it. That's not true. It's just flat out not true. Officials spend, they neglect, if they do have another profession, which the dynamic has really changed over the years. It used to be officials had a full-time job and they officiated on the side. Now officiating is, for more officials, their full-time job, and maybe they have something on the side. But look, the reality is it's not like baseball or basketball where you're playing multiple games a week. You have one game a week. And so there is this call for, well, what are they doing during the week? They're looking at film. They have conference calls. They have Zoom calls. They're studying the upcoming game, the two teams that they're going to work. They're communicating within their crew. They're communicating with the league office. So they're putting in a ton of time. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, them going to a full-time structure or model is ridiculous. We could get some benefit from that. But look, the reality is, in my opinion, it's not going to, if you think there's an officiating crisis, which I don't think it's a crisis, there's always going to be missed calls. If the game is too fast, we're talking about human beings, there's always going to be controversy. That's as long as there's been officials, that's been a part of it. And I don't think that making all the officials full-time is going to eliminate every mistake. It's just not. But again, I think there could be an opportunity to engage more with the officials, especially in the off season. But to say that you're going to make them all full-time and it's going to solve all the issues, that's not the case.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wait a minute. During the basketball season, we hear everybody, talking about how bad the basketball officials are. And the same thing with Major League Baseball umpires. And guess what? They're full-time. Huh? Like you say, 160 games or 100 games. So it's not going to have an effect. And I think we need to get over that. Now, give you more reps. Okay, I get that. Give you more reps. If you have more reps, more opportunities for more reps, then I see that. That could be a help. But I remember back when I left the league, Dean, in 2010, I wrote a report for Roger Goodell, and I felt that the next step was not full-time for 130 officials, but I was for full-time for the 17 referees. And the 17 referees carry the weight of the league on their shoulders. They're the ones that turn on the microphone. They're the ones that carry the perception of their crew. And I have felt like take those 17 and have an officiating institute somewhere in the center of the country, make it Dallas or whatever, and they don't go home. They don't go home after games during the football season. They go to Dallas. And those 17 do everything together. They break down video together. They write rules tests together. They do all that stuff together. And I think what you could get are consistent messages that go to each of their 17 crews. Make them referee supervisors and pay them for what they're worth. But I do think that's a logical step that you could take. Might you lose? Everybody's going to say, well, if you make referees full time, and then some are going to quit because they have their other job. Okay, they quit. But I still say that if you take those 17 most important people and make them full-time, then that is a step to try. What they did a couple of years ago, Dean, by making those 20 officials full-time, that was more of a PR stunt to me than anything. But to take the 17 refs and put them in an institute, I think that could make a difference, especially when we're looking, what high-profile misses are we talking about? We're talking about roughing the passer, those types of things, which is got a lot of discussion. So that to me is something I would like to see them explore the possibility of doing that.
Yeah, there's no question. The referee is the most important part of the crew, not necessarily because of what they do on the field in terms of calls and responsibilities, holding or things like that. It's they run the crew, the communication. They are the conduit between the league office and their crew. And so if they're on the same page and if they're spending time together and communicating, I think that has merit. Absolutely. The league did try to have a smaller group of, not the entire staff of 120, 125 officials. It was a smaller group, like you said, 20, 25, but they were all different positions. They had one on each crew, but they were all over the place. And again, I think from a referee perspective, that makes a lot of sense. Communication, things like that. I don't think this is going away. I don't think, look, we're going to have officiating controversies. We're going to have debates. We're going to have missed calls. We're going to have calls that people think are wrong. So whatever we do, I think the overall picture is how can we create more consistency? And I think more reps, I think having the referees, doing more together, I think that all helps. And I think the league and the competition committee and the other decision makers just have to continue to look at this. Because again, the scrutiny isn't going to get any less. The technology is only getting better. The magnitude of these games and what's riding on all of these games, you think about sports gaming and everything else, it's a lot. And I think the league has to continue to look at this to make sure we don't have coaches talking about officiating problems or fans or media members. And I think full time and maybe it's the referees, but I think it's something they have to continue to look at.
Sean Payton is the one that just came out and said that, he was tired of officiating, but he said the problem is not with the crews. The problem is with the training and the leadership. And when you think about the leadership, and just like I do, it's tough training 130 people. I mean, you're trying to send a message to 130 people as opposed to maybe a referee. If he was in that position, his message goes to 6 others. And so there could be more consistency. But if you polled every coach, right, what would they say? Consistency. That's always been the issue, is what are they looking for in officiating? It's consistency. And, maybe it is time to take that partial step and try with the referees. I wrote that report back in 2010, and it obviously didn't get any, probably was never looked at, as a matter of fact.
You still have it. You have it framed on your wall. You have your frame.
No, I lost it somewhere. I lost it in the move. So that's it. That's Blandino. I'm Pereira. Last call is done after week 11, and we'll talk to you next week.